For this episode of Witchcrafting with Naya, I'm going to be making a prosperity bowl. You might also hear the terms abundance bowl or money bowl. This is essentially a magical working to attract prosperity and abundance into my life. I'm using the term prosperity because it feels more all-encompassing. With a money bowl, I feel like the intent is strictly on attracting money, which doesn't necessarily equate to prosperity or abundance. Abundance is a bit better because it includes access to all kinds of resources, not just financial. But prosperity, I feel, includes not just material abundance, but continued success and growth, not just materially and financially, but in all areas of your life. I'm going to make the bowl to use as the base for this working, in which I will focus my intent, manifesting prosperity into my work. Then I will fill the bowl with items that correspond to this intention while directing this energy into the container. Finally, I will pray over it to my patron deity. I probably won't film the full ritual since this working is really just for myself, but I'll show you all of the things that I put into the bowl to give you inspiration to create your own similar working. Crochet is particularly great for creating magical charms and items. You can focus your intent into each stitch you make, and the repetitive nature of the craft lends itself to putting yourself into a trance-like state. If you are crocheting with yarn that you spun yourself, imbuing intention into every step of the creation process, I bet you could make even more powerful magic. Then following from that, I guess it would technically be best if you had the means to raise your own sheep or to grow your own flax, but that's not really feasible for most people in modern society. For my prosperity bowl, I'm going to be using this hand spun yarn that I bought from Brian from the Wool to Gold YouTube channel. I think that using yarn made by someone who has found success in turning their passion into a business is the perfect material from which to craft my prosperity bowl. This yarn is called Plur Bubble Crepe. I had to look it up, but plur is apparently a term that comes from the electronic dance music scene that means peace, love, unity, and respect. These are all values that I want to imbue into this working. I want to attract prosperity while also building up these values in the world, which has become increasingly difficult under late-stage capitalism. This yarn is made from Polworth and Corriedale wool. Wool, I feel, is a great material for attracting prosperity. My practice is primarily focused on the Mesopotamian pantheon, as you probably know if you've watched my other videos. And wool was one of the most important materials to the economy of ancient Sumer. This yarn has yellow, orange, and pink for the colors. Normally you would think of green or gold as the go-to colors for something like this, but I think these colors work just fine for my purposes. Yellow is associated with air, which is associated with things like the flow of ideas and communication. Pink is a shade of red associated with fire and passion, and pink to me feels like passion, but tempered with love. Orange, being a blend of yellow and red, could symbolize creative ideas fueled by passion. And since I think the thing that's blocking me the most from prosperity and success is my lack of communication skills, I really want to add a lot of the air element into this working to try to boost that communication aspect. Since this yarn already kind of has a lot going on, I'm not going to use a fancy pattern when I make it. I'm just going to make a simple bowl using single crochets. I might do something fancy for the last row around the top. A lot of times I like to put crab stitch borders around the tops of baskets and other containers, but I'm not sure how it's going to look with this yarn, so I'm just going to experiment and see what I like. Before I can get started crocheting, I have to wind this hank into a cake so that I can actually crochet with it. So I'm going to get my yarn winder and switch set up. I'm so thankful that he tied it with a different color yarn so that I can figure out where the ties were. Sometimes yarn is tied with the same yarn, so it's very difficult to figure out how to get it open. There we go, a perfect center pole ball. So I seem to have forgotten to resume recording when I began crocheting my first round, but I started with a round of 8 single crochets in a magic ring because 8 symbolizes stability and security. It's a number with a strong foundation that also attracts abundance and prosperity. And then I finished off camera since it was just going to be single crochets. I just did increase rows to make a flat circle for the bottom, and then I did rows of single crochets all the way around to build up the sides of the bowl. So I didn't think writing out a pattern was necessary for this project. It is now 2 days later, and I have finished crocheting my bowl. I have gathered and crafted the items to put inside, and I have done the ritual to imbue the whole working with power. The most obvious item to place inside a prosperity bowl to attract money is physical money. I put some coins inside at the bottom of the bowl, both US and Canadian currency. I also put some paper currency, a few US $2 bills, and bills from Singapore and South Korea. I also put in this little change purse right here. I've been using this since I was a kid to store my more interesting coins from around the world. This lion was a gift from a childhood friend who turned out to not actually be such a nice person after all, but I've cleansed it, so it should be fine. Since it is a lion, I can think of it in connection to Inanna. I also included this tumbled malachite. I don't use stones a lot in my magical workings, except occasionally symbolically. I think people tend to think stones have a bit more inherent power than they actually do, but malachite is green, so it can symbolize money and abundance. And it apparently comes from copper deposits. Copper was important to the Sumerian economy, so it is a good symbol of wealth for someone whose practice is based around the Sumerian deities. Also, on one of my genome link reports, my top ancient ancestor match was a coppersmithing inventor from Arslan Tepe in modern-day Turkey, so I like that connection as well. I also have a dried bit of my lemon cypress right here to symbolize the forest. The forest and nature more broadly provides everything that we need to survive. So I wanted to include that connection to abundance in nature. I'm also hoping to be able to make some extra income by leading forest bathing sessions, since I just finished my forest bathing guide training through Treeming. And I'm working on getting all the business stuff set up. The tree's held up by a spinning wheel that I made out of clay. I'm hoping to be able to make some extra income using my crafting skills as well. And then I crocheted this little waxing moon and a garden gnome using green yarn. The waxing moon symbolizes growing prosperity. The gnome symbolizes a connection to the earth and also whimsy. And finally, I crocheted Inanna's 8-pointed star symbol in pink and black, which are my favorite colors. Pink can also symbolize passion and love, while black symbolizes protection. I'm showing you what symbolism I've incorporated into my prosperity bowl to hopefully give you inspiration to personalize your own working. As with most magic, it will probably be more effective to think about what kinds of symbols resonate for you personally, rather than just trying to recreate exactly what I did. Well, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.